What are mutating array methods? They are array methods that modify or mutate the original array, such as the pop and push array method, shift and unshift array method. Let's see each one of this in action, starting with the pop array method. It allows you to remove the last element in an array. In this example, we have 3 numbers in our array, the numbers 1, 2, and 3. And when we call the pop method on this array, we will modify the array 1 and it will now have just 2 elements in it, the numbers 1 and 2. A more complex example will be using the pop array method to keep track of a user's document history. Let's say the user is making changes to a document and then they decide to undo their last action. We can simply use the pop array method on the document history array, thereby removing or undoing the last user's action. The push array method allows you to push new elements to the end of an existing array. In this example, we have the numbers 1 and 2 already existing in our array, and then we push in the number 3 using the push method. And now array 1 will have 3 numbers in it, 1, 2, and 3. A more complex example will be using the push array method to push elements into a shopping cart. So we have an empty shopping cart to begin with, and each time the user clicks add to cart, we push the product to the shopping cart array using the push array method. And at the end of it, the user just clicks 3 items and then we will have 3 products in our shopping cart array. So the original shopping cart array has been modified and now it is no longer empty but has 3 products. The shift array method allows you to remove elements from the beginning of an existing array. In this example, we have array 1 with 3 numbers in it, 1, 2, and 3, and then we call the shift method. And now array 1 will have the numbers 2 and 3 only in its array. A more complex example is using the shift array method to complete items in a to-do list. We can use a complete task function, and inside the function, we just get access to the first element and then we mark that or remove that from the to-do list. So now when we call complete task, finish homework is marked as done, and now to-do list has just 1 element in it, which is walk the dog. The unshift array method allows you to push or add new items to the beginning of an existing array. So here we have the numbers 2 and 3 in our array, and then we use unshift to add the number 1. So now the array has the numbers 1, 2, and 3. A more complex example will be using the unshift array method to keep track of conversations in a messaging app. Here we have a send message function and we'll be using unshift to append the latest message to the beginning of the conversation array. So now when we log the conversation array, we will get Bob's message before Alice's message because Bob sent his message after Alice sent hers. Let's put all of this into practice by using all 4 array methods, all 4 mutating array methods. I'll start by creating a task list array, and the premise of this example is we're creating a sort of a to-do list kind of feature for a developer. So all the tasks in the task list will be developer kind of tasks, and we'll just be using all of the array methods we've discussed to make modifications to this task list. So let me add about 3 items and we'll proceed from there. So now that we have the 3 items added to the task list, we'll start by creating a function to add a new task to the end of this task list array. And what array method will we be using in this function? Can you guess? The array method we'll be using is the push array method because that is what allows us to push new items to the end of an existing array. So let's create a function called add tags to end. And the push array method is going to require an item to be pushed, and we'll accept that in the function as an argument. So when we're calling the function, we will pass that as an argument. So inside the function, we'll simply say task list does push the task that was passed in as the argument. And just to give the user feedback, we'll log a simple message to the console, letting the user know that this task has been added to the end of the list. I'm typing a little slow. Please forgive me. I'm using a new keyboard and I've not gotten used to it at all. So if you're wondering why my typing is so slow, that is why. So now that we have this message logged and this function, and we're already using the push array method, we can move on to using the pop array method. And oops, I wanted to give you sort of like a mini quiz, and I've already said it. But anyway, the pop array method is what we're going to be using to remove a tax from the end of the list. So similar to the add tax to end function, we'll create a function to remove tax from end. And because we are removing an existing tax in the array, we don't need any arguments or parameters, but we can get access to the tax that is being removed. I wanted to use an if else statement, but that would be an overkill. Back to the code at hand, we can just get access to the tax that is being removed and save that in this constant. So let's say remove tax will be the result of calling the pop array method on the tax list. So when we do tax list.pop, we get access to the last element that is being removed. And now we can use that remove tax to log a message to the user. You can use it for any other thing. In this example, we'll just be using it to log a message to the user. I'll copy this existing log message and just paste it here and make changes to it. This should be removed tax, not taxed. Yeah, remove tax. And the hope or the goal of this example is to tie it all together. When I was learning this concept, being able to do mini projects like this where I take a couple of concepts I've learned and then use it to build out something was really, really key in helping solidify my understanding of those concepts. And my hope is that it will help you too. So let's zoom in a bit. And okay, so we have 2 methods already used and we have 2 more methods to use. So the next thing I want to do is to create a way to remove a tax from the beginning of the list. And what array method will we be using to do that? The shift array method is what we're going to use to remove a tax from the beginning of the list. So just like the other 2 functions, we'll be creating a simple function, and all this function will be doing is to use the shift array method to remove a tax from the beginning of the list. So remove tax from start. I think that's what I'll call it. It also doesn't need any parameter arguments. Instead, we are going to be getting access to the tax that is being removed. Once again, we'll store it in this constant called remove tax. And then we can use the remove tax constant to notify the user of what tax in particular was removed from the tax list. So we'll just copy this log statement that we have here and paste it, and then just make one small modification. So instead of tax removed from the end, we want to say tax removed from the start of the list. So 3 methods down and 1 last method to go. So the last thing we want to do is to be able to add a tax to the beginning of the list. And what array method will we be using for that? The unshift array method. The unshift array method is what we're going to be using. So let's create another function, and I promise this is the last function we're going to be creating. And this function will be add tax to start. Add tax to start. And once again, it will need access to the tax that we want to add, which will be passing in as an argument to the function. And then we can say tax list dot unshift the tax that was passed in. And lastly, we'll just log a message, a simple message to the user, letting them know that a tax has been added to the beginning, to the start of the list. So I'll copy and paste that, and I'll just, instead of end, it should be start of the list. Great, so we have all our functions done. 4 functions so far, each one using one of the array methods that we've spoken about. So let's start logging this out and seeing all of this work together. First thing I want to log is the initial tags list so we can see what we're starting out with and the modifications that we will make afterwards. So initial tags list, and then I'll just append the tags list array. And then we can start adding items to the beginning or the end of the tags list array. But first, let's just run this and we can see our initial tags list. Great. So let's start adding items to the beginning and the end. So add tags to start, and I'll be adding update document. And then we will also add a tags to the beginning. So we'll call our add tags to start. Sorry, my brain got blank for a second. Add tags to start function, and we'll pass in a new tags. Let's say fix bug in login module. Great. So we'll run this code once again, and you know what, let's log the resulting tags list. So we have the initial tags list, and then we make 2 modifications to the tags list, and now we can log the updated tags list. So let's log the updated tags list. Let's clear that and run this code. So we have a couple of log statements. The first one is the initial tags list with 3 items in it. And then we added the update documentation tags to the end of the list. Then we added the fix bug in login module to the start of the list. And so our updated tags list will now have 5 items in it: fix bug, complete project, review code, prepare presentation, and update documentation. So that is working as expected. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for coding along and following along. We're almost at the finish line. So now we just want to use our remaining 2 functions, which will be removing tags from the start and the end of the list. So we'll just call remove tags from end and then call remove tags from start. And now we can run this code, and oops, I almost forgot. Yes, I want to log the final tags list. I keep forgetting to do that. So final tags list. And if you're wondering why I'm still using the tags list array, it is because all these methods are mutating arrays. So they are mutating the original tags list, or just making changes to the original tags list. Great. So let's see what we have. We have our initial tags list with 3 items in it. Then we went ahead to add an item to the end of the list. We added a new tags to the start of the list. Our updated tags list has 5 items in it. And then we removed the item from the end of the list and from the start of the list. And now we're back to 3 items in our final tags list. And I hope this mini project helps you to really understand and digest how these methods work. So let's head to the final portion of this video and talk about the use cases and importance of each of this. So starting with the pop and push array method, they're really great for when you want to start making changes to the last item in a data stack. I think it's called last in, last out. I'm not really sure about that, but they're great for when you want to implement, undo, and redo functionalities for users. So when you want users to be able to undo their last action, like I showed earlier on, in the document history array, the pop and push array method are great for that. They are also great when you want to allow the user to navigate through their previous visited pages on the browser off the top of my head, that is another great way to use the pop and push array method. So when you want to allow users to go back and go forward, anything that involves that pop and push might work very well for that. For the shift and unshift array method, they're great when you want to modify the first item in your data structure. In this case, we'll be using an array as a data structure, but they're really great for that. And the use case for that, or very good examples of that, is whenever you want the user to be able to perform an action chronologically. So in the case of the to-do list, where we wanted the user to be able to mark the first item as completed, and then the next item and the next item, and from top to bottom, we wanted the user to be able to do that. The shift and unshift method is great for that. It's also great when you want to show messages in a chronological order, like I showed in the example earlier. We want to show the latest message at the top. This shift and unshift array method will be great for that also. Let me know what your thoughts are on these array methods, and if you have any concerns, any complaints, any criticisms, any suggestions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching.